You don't have to be a sports fan to have loved this year's World Series, or even to bask in the glow of the Chicago Cubs having won it. And yes, I said bask in the glow. Full disclosure, born and raised in Chicago, total Cubs fan, don't care, 108 years was a long time to wait, would have loved them if it was 109 years. Just want to say these 6 words. Cubs win, Cubs win, Cubs win. Okay, thanks. I got that off my chest. It's a really big deal, and yes, it's very exciting. But you really don't have to be a sports fan to appreciate what this World Series was about and why so many people who aren't sports fans completely fell in love with watching these 7 games and genuinely celebrating that the Chicago Cubs won. Now, my theory actually has to do with the fact that I was telling people for the week or so before, once it was clear it was going to be the Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, that I was happy with either outcome. Now, I'm glad that wasn't tested, and I'm glad the Cubs won. But I like to believe, and I think it's really true, that I would have been happy either way. Because, as I argued, these were both deserving teams. These were both teams that had gone generations without a World Series victory. These were both teams that, in their way, deserved a victory. And it was so stunning to me that this was all coming down in the days before we turn as a nation to elect a new president. Because, in fact, the idea that either way would have been a victory is sort of the opposite how an unprecedented number of Americans are feeling these days. No, I'm not taking a position, though I have one, about President Clinton potentially versus President Trump potentially. I'm simply reflecting what an unprecedented number of Americans are telling pollsters of every stripe and color, that they're actually not thrilled with the choice they're going to make. It's the opposite of what went on with the Indians and the Cubs, where either team would have been a victory. Here, an unprecedented number of Americans actually feel that in some way, either victor, we're kind of going to lose as a nation. That's not exactly what we want. And so I want to propose as a real takeaway, sports fan, no sports fan, Cubs fan, not a Cubs fan, Indians fan, not an Indians fan. What would it take to feel happier about a particular outcome, but be able to live reasonably happy with either way it comes down? That is the exact opposite of how people are about this election, and I think may be the key to figuring out how we go forward as a nation starting the day after that election. So I want to make a proposal inspired by my excitement about the Cubs winning and the fact that I would have, I hope, been really okay with the Indians had they won instead. Imagine asking yourself, how do we wake up in a country, whether as individual voters, as communities, as affinity groups, as elected officials from either or both parties, with one question on our minds the day after the election? What can you live with even when you can't have what you ideally want? What can you live with even when you can't have what you ideally want? And the fact is, I do know 2 things. Anyone who says, I'm not prepared to answer that, it's all or nothing, even if we agree with them, they're part of the problem. And anyone, no matter how odious we may think they are going into the election, if they're willing to work on that basis the day after the election, we will move forward. And it won't just be Cubs win, Cubs win, Cubs win. It could actually be America wins. We all win. The world wins. And deep down, I think even most of the people with whom I disagree most deeply going into this election really do want all 3 of those things. So whatever happens between now and Tuesday, let's wake up in a country on Wednesday we all say, what are we prepared to live with, even when we can't get what we ideally want? And let's work together on that basis.